Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 141. Models Memories is a show about nothing and it is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Oh, could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop brought some old minis back from the dead. I may have gone a little bit hard this Black Friday, and there's a few suspicious absences in the new Necron Codex. But first, getting into some of the most fun that Games Workshop has ever had, the cheerleaders from Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is a wonderfully fun looking game. It's super silly and super flavorful, and I really want the Amazons team. I think they look super cool, and every team comes with like their football piece, and the Amazons football piece has got a snake with the football in its belly, and it's adorable, and I absolutely love it. But the cheerleaders I think they're just a fun thing, like a fun little thing to have in your team, but I feel like Games Workshop kind of missed a spell by not having them actually be a real thing in the game. I think every single Blood Bowl team should have cheerleaders, and I actually think they should also probably have like a referee and a fan. Like, think about one fan character from every single faction of just like holding a big sign with a big foam finger for every single faction. Like, what does a ghost fan look like? With like the beer hat where it's got the 2 little like 12-ounce cans and the straw. Like, how much fun could they have just creating a civilian for each of the different factions for Blood Bowl? I think that would be hilarious. And I think it would actually work. You don't have to have them actually be like usable models on the field. In the game, A Song of Ice and Fire, a lot of the famous heroes that you would actually want, they're not actually they're sort of game pieces. They're tokens essentially, because you have the battle going on. But then you kind of have a secondary board to track like effects and bonuses, and you put your heroes like Tyrion and whoever, all the other characters in Game of Thrones, and you put them on this board, and that's how you sort of track those certain things. So they're not, and I actually kind of found it a little bit disappointing when I played the game for the first time, because, you know, you got these characters and you're like, okay, you were maybe in the movie or the TV show, I don't remember which one. And so you're like, but you know, what do I do with this model? And then you don't put it, so a lot of them you do put on the battlefield, but a bunch of them are just tokens. And I think cheerleaders would make hilarious tokens, especially because it's not a character that you actually know and you're like, I want to see them hit somebody with a sword. It's just a cheerleader. I think they would be great tokens to use in game to actually like show off some effects or to track points. Oh, and I just want to see a fan model. I might have to make fan models just for each of the factions. I just want to see like just a giant bowl of popcorn, or there's just so much you could do with it. But looking at the models that Games Workshop actually made, the human cheerleaders are unfortunately just human cheerleaders. There's nothing super exceptional about them. They're good models. They look fine. They would look good alongside the humans, but I think just whenever there's a generic, normal human faction, I always feel like, but what else you got? You know, you got robots, you got bugs, you got, you know, evil zombies. What else you got besides regular folks? Because I've painted a lot of regular folks at this point, and I always want to try something different. They all have the exact same pose and kind of the exact same uniform, which makes sense if they're actually cheerleaders, and I think they would probably look pretty good all masked up next to each other. It would probably look pretty reasonable and appropriate, but some of the other cheerleaders are a little bit more fun. The Orc cheerleaders. I love these models. I think they're super fun. I love how awful they are, and I would actually love to paint these up and put on a lot of makeup. I think that would be a really fun little painting challenge to see. Painting tattoos and like skin and stuff is really tricky, because you have to essentially paint a perfect skin, and then you have to paint stuff on top of it that doesn't look like just discoloration or mistakes. It has to look like something that is on actual skin, which is really tricky to do, but I would definitely be willing to try it on these Orc cheerleaders. I think they're really fun. They sort of have pom-poms in these little bundles of like rusty metal in their hands. I think it would be funnier if they actually had pom-poms. Like if they were actually trying, or maybe just a grot in each hand. And the grot's also just helping out and just cheering. The Chaos cheerleaders obviously look the best. They look phenomenal. I wish the Chaos Blood Bowl team was a little cooler. I think these are meant to go alongside the Corn ones, which kind of just look like a halfway between a Khorne Berserker and a Jackal, which is the super buff Arnold Schwarzenegger cultists that only the Angron's Legion get. But they look very, very good. Clearly the best of this spread. I also feel like these are the now defunct Forge World models, and I feel like Forge World tried a little bit harder on these ones for some reason. I can't imagine why the design team would have taken a little extra care in these models, but they actually look really good. And having them all holding the same deadly pom-poms and these kind of bladed frisbees is a very nice touch. And it's the Chaos Star, which is also a lovely little detail. And the Dark Elf cheerleaders, which are also similarly to the Chaos ones, they're also very good. I wish the Dark Elf team was a little bit more fun. I feel like the normaler factions have normaler minis, where they actually do sort of look like football players, where once you start getting into the weird stuff like the ogres and the grots and the ghosties, you start to get some really, really weird and wacky stuff going on. They look like cheerleaders, and the severed head is a nice touch. I kind of wish that they all had severed heads, but they look fine and they look fun. Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is such a fun game with so many fun and weird and wacky miniatures. And I would love, if I wanted to get into Blood Bowl, I would want all of it. I would want the cheerleaders, I would want the coaches, I would want fans, and I would want the full team to paint them all up perfectly, put the lines on their bases, create the different pitches of like, I just love the idea of like a football pitch, but you got the Dark Elf one, which is spooky, and then you got the Nighthaunt one, which is ghosty, and then you got the Orc one, which is a swamp. And you can just do all of these fun different things in the world of literal fantasy football. I get why the 2-player starter set is Orcs versus regular humans, and I actually have the old Season 1 Blood Bowl starter sets, which I don't know. I assume it's the same game, probably with some tweaks, knowing how Games Workshop does game releases, but I don't know if I need to get, let me know in the comments below if I need to get Blood Bowl Season 2 or if I can just grab teams and like get the rules and tokens and stuff off the internet. I assume I can, but sometimes Games Workshop makes it really, really hard. Like they're like, no, you need this specific size and this specific layout and these specific things. So for any Blood Bowl fans out there, let me know how I play Blood Bowl. Oh, an Orc, I'm just thinking about fans now. An Orc fan would be going so hard. You'd have the little stick that makes a noise, or the club bangers, those little foam things that you smack together and they make an absurd amount of noise. It would be so much fun. It would be kind of fun even if the fans weren't necessarily of the same faction. Like sometimes you get like one guy at a Yankees cap at the wrong foot at the wrong game and everyone's kind of mad at him. You could have some really, really cute, fun scenarios. And what would a fan like be in a token in the game? Like what would he be signifying? Maybe like who's ahead in points? You put your fan higher up on the scoreboard. I don't know, but it would be a lot of fun. I would absolutely love to see it. But speaking of things I would love to see, there were some surprising models missing from the Necron Codex. Space Marines just went through this, pretty much no other faction did, of things missing from the Codex. And there was 3 notable things gone. And it sort of makes it like it's hard to complain as the Necrons, because 3 years ago we got the biggest range refresh in the history of all of Warhammer 40,000. We got like 13 new data sheets. So Necrons are sitting pretty for sure, but there were some missing models. The first one I'm not too bothered by, and that is Onkire the Traveler. This guy, he's kind of gone back and forth between having some fun rules and just being a bog standard overlord. He is a nomadic Necron overlord who just travels from tomb world to tomb world to just, I don't know, to go on an adventure. He's like Jules at the end of Pulp Fiction. He just wanders, and whatever adventures he gets into, those are the adventures he gets into. Not super bothered by his disappearance, but my favorite couple in all of Warhammer 40,000 is gone. Nemesis Zandrik and Vargard Oberon. One of my favorite things in Warhammer 40,000. I ship them so hard. Nemesis Zandrik is a Necron overlord who's starting to lose it a little bit. He sees the world as if he was back in the days of the Necrotire when Necrons were flesh and blood and had souls. And he is a brilliant strategic mind. I mean, in 40k, everyone who's a little bit tall is the greatest strategic genius in the history of Warhammer 40,000, but he's actually a genius tactician, but he gives the full honorable rules of conflict to every engagement he's in, whether he's fighting the orcs or the humans or the Eldar. He always acts as if they are an invading necrotire force, and he'll take prisoners. He'll take, if his opponents want to like talk with him, he'll cook a full spread of food for them to eat, which he can't physically do. He'll break bread with them. Like, he is a wonderful character, and all the other Necrons hate him because they just see him as so eccentric and so weird and not that they don't want to deal with him. But he's got a secret weapon, and that is Vargard Oberon, which for the longest time I thought was Vanguard Oberon, but it's actually Vargard Oberon. He is in love with the guy. He's completely loyal, would never let anything happen to him. And a lot of people think that Vargard Oberon is actually the puppet master, the guy pulling the strings, because he kind of has the real power, because he knows what's going on. He sees what's happening. If Xandric actually takes a bunch of prisoners, Vargard Oberon might make sure that they disappear, or, there's a prison riot where they all happen to vanish. If anybody plots any secret threats against Nemesis Xandric, he makes sure to publicly execute them and humiliate them. Like, he is also a genius, but he is just 100% completely loyal to his king, and I absolutely love it. They're now gone although I definitely don't think that they could never return, especially because for some reason, the only Necron, I think, model still in Finecast, Trazine the Infinite, who's actually a major player in Warhammer 40k right now. He keeps popping up in the lore. He was, of course, in The Infinite and Divine, which is the most popular Warhammer 40,000 novel. He was at the Fall of Cadia, throwing his Pokeballs, bringing all sorts of different things into the fight. He is an important character. I think the chaotic bell that like sounded the arrival of the 13th Black Crusade was actually in his museum, and it actually like wrecked the place. He's a major player in Warhammer 40k right now, so they must be working on something special for him. Maybe they're already planning for 11th edition, and they're like, we need a big Necron something to show off when that happens, because he's a major player, and he's currently still a squishy, squatty little Finecast model. And the Necron Finecast models are both better than other factions and way worse, because they actually showed up at the tail end of 5th edition when the Games Workshop was just trying out Finecast, and so some of their units actually never were metal before they were Finecast. Now they are also some of the worst Finecast you can buy, because whoever was in charge of Finecast decided, I'm very nervous if this resin is going to get all the way over the mold, so I'm just going to glue tiny triangles everywhere, covering up details. And Necrons are made out of like cubes and rectangles, so it's really hard to tell where these little sprue gates are. Like, is this his finger, or is this extra resin that I have to carefully carve away? And I have all these characters, and I actually have built Nemesis Xandric and Vargard Oberon, and I will be using them in game, because even though they don't officially have Necron, they don't officially have new rules in the 10th edition Codex, Games Workshop literally wrote rules for them like 6 months ago with the launch of 10th edition. So very current rules. I'm just gonna use the index rules, and if anybody has any problem with that, they can fight me, because I need my cute couple on the battlefield. I like them. But yeah, Necrons have really, really bad Finecasts, and so there's only one left, and is probably one of the most popular Necron characters of all time. But on a positive note, the new Oricon is phenomenal. I really like Oricon. He's a really, really fun character, and everybody needs to read The Infinite and the Divine. Even if you don't like Warhammer 40k, it's kind of not a Warhammer 40k novel. It's a buddy cop like book. It's really funny. And Oricon, he is such a curmudgeon-y old man that he woke up he woke up first in his tomb world, and he literally keeps everyone else asleep so that they won't bother him, because he's got things to do. He's trying to transcend time and space. He doesn't have time to deal with the other royal court's business, and literally he could change battles and wars. He has an entire dynasty at his control, and he's like, just let him sleep. I gotta finish binging Friends. I don't want to deal with whatever they've got going on. He is fantastic, and he has a lovely new model. One thing that would have been nice to see is empowered Oberon, where he actually powers up through like the power of the celestial star stuff. And I just want to see a hulked out version of him that's ultra powerful. It's probably just his normal Necron body with like an angelic glow behind it, if you kind of think about the infinite and the divine. But it would have been fun to see maybe like a double kit where you get regular Oricon and then empowered Oricon, because it is something that he can do, but it's a little sad that we didn't get to see it happen. But I do like his new model a lot. His old model looked like Robot Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and his new model, he still looks a little squirrely, but you know, he's a fragile old man. It kind of makes sense. I like his big old tail and his humongous staff of light that is bigger than he is. I think he's a really, really fun model. So I'm excited to pick him up because I actually have the old Finecast one, and I don't want it, because it's so old and crunchy and tiny. I would much rather have the new, shiny, beautiful model. But speaking of beautiful models, I went a little hard this Black Friday season. I got myself some Wookiee warriors for Star Wars Legion, which, if you like nice models and you like things that are a little bit less expensive than Games Workshop, or a lot less expensive than Games Workshop, Star Wars Legion is a great game. If you just keep your eyes out on Amazon, usually one kit in the range will be like 50% off, just for some reason. And that's when I pulled the trigger. I actually got 2 boxes of Wookiee Warriors. I really like these guys, and they actually replaced older, cruddier models. And these models are lovely. One thing that's really interesting about this kit is now they're in plastic. They used to always make their models out of PVC, which they were getting pretty darn good with the PVC, but the plastic is much, much better. You get 6 Wookiee Warriors in a box, but there's actually only 3 different Wookiees. But there's enough different weapon options and stuff that comes in the box that you can actually get a decent amount of variety. I built all 12, and I think I did a decent job of getting some unique looking Wookiees, even though, you know, 3 sets of 4 of them all have the same legs. I got some different bits and stuff going on. I was really hoping that I could get them all painted up in a week. Didn't quite happen. I got 3 of them. I got 3 of them with some paint on them. I really like the Wookiees. Also, one thing that I was very disappointed by with this kit was, seems like Star Wars Legion has gotten rid of the colored bases, which is a little bit of a bummer for me. It's actually probably a dumb thing to do, and I see why they stopped doing it, but for my Legion models, I very carefully masked off the base rim so that I could actually have the original plastic on the bases, because I collect all the different factions. And so I want my rebels with the red, I want my Imperials with the gray, I want my battle droids with the blue, and then I want my clones to have kind of that like burgundy magenta-y color. But I really like the Wookiees. I love having them fly across the board. And I think another reason why they didn't come with special bases is because these are actually available to the Rebel faction, which is my largest army for Star Wars Legion, and they're available to the Clone Troopers. So I guess they didn't want to have the wrong colored bases. I guess it's always going to be the wrong colored bases, but they wouldn't want to have like Rebel bases in the Clone faction. But I got these Wookiee Warriors, and they took a surprising amount of time to paint up because they're just a little bit physically bigger than Star Wars Legion minis, because they're just Wookiees. Wookiees are humongous. But usually I can finish a Star Wars Legion model really, really quickly. Actually, you know what? In fact, I painted Boba Fett. I forgot, I painted this guy last week. Super fun. I painted him in about 2.5 hours, and I love him. Obviously, everyone loves Boba Fett. He's the coolest guy in the world, but he was really, really fun to paint up. Painted up really quickly. This guy is old PVC, but he looks pretty darn good. He's actually pretty old in the lineup of Star Wars Legion miniatures, so he's a little crunchy, and his details are a little bit soft, but there's plenty there. There is plenty there to work with. I'll probably get to paint him again when he comes to Shatter Points, but I really, really like him, and he painted up so quick. Although, arguably, I got 2.5 hours of painting into this guy. I probably have like an hour and a half into these Wookiees. It's hard. It's hard to get painting done in the evenings. I do and don't get a lot of painting time in, but actually I have a lot more painting to do because I said I went hard this Black Friday, and I did mean it. It's not just 2 boxes of Wookiee Warriors. I got the Orc Christmas box. Now, some of you might be asking, Jay, don't you have a Death Guard Christmas Battle Force from last year? And to those people, I would say, you don't need to bring it up. But I'm really excited about the Beast Snagga box because I don't really have any Beast Snaggas in my Orc army, but I have been playing with the Beast Snaggas. I've been proxying them because the rules are just all really, really good, and they're just the shiny new Orc models, and it's fun to play with new things. But I wasn't sure how to perfectly integrate them into my army because I have the Mad Max Orcs. Mad Max Fury Road is the greatest movie of all time. It is an absolute masterpiece. From the man who brought us Babe 2, Pig in the City, and Happy Feet comes the greatest action movie of all time. But the new Orcs are designed they're monster hunter Orcs. They're designed to kill bigger, badder things, and they kind of have, not a beachy theme going on, but they have like skins and pelts, and they're a little bit more snake bitey in their look. And that doesn't really seem like it belongs in the wastelands of Mad Max. But now I'm thinking, well, why don't I just heavily convert every single model? Because if anybody has seen Mad Max Fury Road, you'll remember the buzzards. They take part in like the first big battle in the movie, and they're rusty and covered in spikes, and they all wear goggles and like face masks. And I can do some face swaps for these Orcs, and I can find goggles, I can put spikes all over them and make them super rusty. And I think that's how I'm gonna integrate them into my Orc army, is they're gonna be the Buzzard faction. And that'll just do a really good job of separating them from the Orcs I already have, because the Orcs I have are the War Boys. My Orcs are shiny and chrome, where these guys are gonna be super crazy rusty, and I'm gonna use the pigs. They're gonna be war pigs. Somewhere out in the wasteland, there's like a horrible mutant. There's probably squigs in the Mad Max universe. Just some horrible little monster creature that has somehow survived the apocalypse. And so that is how I'm gonna do up this Orc box. And yes, the Death Guard are coming. They are coming one day. I will paint them up. It takes a long time to paint my Death Guard. I try to do a very, very good job. I have a Mortarion. It'll probably take a month. It's gonna be a challenge. But you know what is never a challenge? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have monthly terrain packs. This month, we have the Plasma Pipes, a totally tubular set of power pipes, plants, generators, and a little skeleton worker. With magnet slots, this energetic set is ready to crisscross a battlefield. And if you always want to be up to date on the goings on here at Eons of Battle and be entered into our monthly giveaways, this month we're picking 3 followers to receive this month's terrain. You can follow the link in the description below to sign up to our newsletter. It has been a very fun week of Warhammer 40k and wargaming in general, and even though my favorite couple in Warhammer 40k is gone, I remember that they're in my drawer back there, and so I'm going to get them out and I'm going to paint them anyway, and I'm going to play with them anyway. Thanks for watching.